Hey guys, this is Vince with Practical Performance. This is the second video in a series of videos where we are installing the rear VinceBar, in this case in a convertible. Same thing in the sedan coupe touring. All body styles essentially, apart from the compact. Anyway, in the first part we left off here where we had flattened the T, made sure that the patch plates fit. And we'll move on with cleaning this up, grinding down the MIG welds, drawing the outline of the patch plate, and then removing paint. Using a microfiber rag and some brake cleaner, I removed the dirt and grime. Using a Dremel with a grinding disc, I ground down the MIG welds. These are easy to get to. Don't forget to get this one as well. It's kind of difficult to get in there, but far from impossible. So with that, I will clean up the debris. I like to keep it clean. I'm just going to vacuum that off and then trace the... Up until this point, installing the weld-in version and the epoxy rivet version is the same. However, when you get to this point where we have flattened the T, what you will only need to do is weld the slots and grind them flat, as well as the existing MIG welds here. Later on, before final installation of the VinceBar, you will be just adding some paint here for rust protection. So you will not be doing the following steps with tracing the patch plate and removing all this paint. You will just be welding this and grinding it flat. With Sharpie, I traced the outline. We're not looking for perfection, we're just looking for the vicinity where we are going to remove the grinding disc on the Dremel. I've removed paint. Once again, we're not looking for perfection. We just want, this is not really structural, I would say semi. We're just looking for a better chance for the epoxy to adhere. What you want to do though, and to be careful about, is to check for any high spots. So what you want to do is grind, either punch those down or grind the high spots. Now the paint is removed, it's time to fold this back down again. But before I do that, I'm just going to be pushing and bending these inwards, kind of like this, off camera, to get them out of the way. It's going to be easier to get this flush. We're looking for, again, removing any high spots that may be here. This is actually pretty good. Good job, Vince. As I was bending the piece here, I realized that one other way of doing this is just to sort of wiggle it like this, fatigue it, and break it off. That's probably even better. On the other side here, it bent really nicely. You don't want it to go outbound because the plate will be sitting there. Having removed some more of the seam sealer, I realized, I'm not sure if you can see that, I hadn't cut this quite far enough. We want this shelf to be, well, removed and the surface to be flush. So I'm gonna use the angle grinder again and cut that a little bit further and then hammer in the flange. Now that I cut it a bit deeper, it's easy to just use a punch and a hammer and push that down and get it out of the way inbound. I want to say, take it really, really easy when you go inwards here, or forward, if you will. This here, that piece, this panel, that's the outer panel. If you cut through this, you're gonna be, you can view it, you're gonna have a hole in the floor, essentially. So go a little bit at a time and make sure you don't cut into this panel here. I fold this down, pushed it down. I used some pliers to get this a bit more straight. I used a hammer to tap it down. I just want to, so you can see over here, because we sort of we bent this, there's some flex there. I used a punch again to punch this down. I did also remove some of this sound deadening, as it had cracked when I bent this. I might as well get it off, and it's easier to punch this down. Now, I also noticed that I have cut this a little bit too I haven't cut it far enough inwards, frontwards. So I'll also cut some more of this off. Yeah, and you want to punch this down, but you want it to sort of flex up a little bit. I'll show you later, because you want this to be pushing against the VinceBar, the front lip. Test fitting the VinceBar, it's important that this arc strip goes in front of, and the card direction, or behind, if you will, inside, I should say, of this panel here. And the bar needs to be, you need to be able to move it a little bit side to side. And for this, I noticed that I need to widen this slot because it's stuck there. It's stuck to the left. And so basically what we'll do now is we will test fit and remove a little bit more of the sheet metal as needed. I like to do it that way rather than cut too much, because it gives a cleaner and nicer looking installation. Now that the slots are okay, I pulled this, I bent this upwards because these little strips here, they go in behind underneath these. So as you can see, the strips are in behind underneath, and you get it to that point by sort of tipping it in. You also need to make sure that this strip is on the inside as well. Now, I can't get it quite down, and I realized that let's see if I pull that up. I cut this, it needs to be more narrow. It's a little bit too deep. I should have cut this further in. It's now hitting the bar. So I'll take care of that and see how that works out. As I'm talking a lot about the rivets and epoxy, I wanted to point out with the weld version, which has the larger and so it has the larger front holes here. So instead of the rivets, you will be plug welding. It also has the more sort of the other holes here in between that are closer to the bar. So it's equally important, as I will be talking about in the next section, that the strip from the floor does come close enough to the bar so you can plug weld here, so you have something in behind underneath these holes where you can plug weld. Having used a 24mm wide strip rather than 30 I had before, I have drawn a new line, and I realized that on the end here I had left a lot too much. Towards the middle it was okay, and there's some extra here, so I was a little bit sloppy when I cut that. I don't want to cut it too so I don't want to leave this too narrow, because this is going on top, and we have the rivets. The rivets are going to go in sort of somewhere here. So you don't need to be as crazy as me probably. You could cut it a little bit deeper, but I just tend to want to leave as much as possible, because we're also going to have epoxy here in between and under here as well. So this is going to be riveted and epoxied to this, and I want to leave as much as possible. Using this strip here, I did trace a line and cut, and now I'm making sure that this edge here is inside of that edge here, making it nice and straight. Now, and again, make sure that you deburr these edges here. I've been a little bit sloppy there. Maybe you can see it. You can easily cut your fingers. Use gloves as well. Now that I've done that, let's see if I can do this with one hand. So that strip goes behind there. This one goes behind there. This here goes in this slot here. So I pull it towards myself, and there you go. And now it should be able to tap down like this. So that's the kind of tight fit I believe you should have. Now, having said that, we can see that I cut a little bit too little here. Not enough, I should say. So you can actually see that my line was probably out here. So this piece here needs to be trimmed. I believe a little bit should be trimmed here as well. you can actually have a look at whether it should go forward or rearward by looking at the holes. These should line up, and you can also use a bolt if you would want to do that, just to make sure that you're not moving it to forward or to rearward. Now I'm going to go off and trim that and see how that works. I'm cutting, I'm trimming little by little. I've gotten down pretty far. This is where you check whether you need to go further down. So it's touching here, it's touching here. I like to get this really nicely, so I'm going slow. I also noticed that I'm touching there, so I need to cut this slot deeper, and probably this one as well. But again, I'm doing this little by little to get it to fit really nicely. As I'm trimming away, I have gotten these holes to line up pretty well. It is a little bit tight there. I noticed that I need to get some of the seam sealer off here. I'm going to be using a sharp chisel and just my hands, no hammer or anything. I also noticed that I'm having a little bit trouble to get these two to line up. And even though I have a nice little gap here, I did notice that the arc strip is touching here, which is stopping me from getting it further back. So I'm going to be adjusting here. I'll probably tap the strip and or use an adjustable wrench, pull this surface a bit backwards. Removing the seam sealer, and actually when I did that, I noticed that I needed to cut some of the flange off here, down there, as well as over here. There you go. And pulling this backwards and pushing the strip forwards did the job. It's sitting correctly. Now, let's see if I can make that show. It does flex a little bit up and down. That's because it's sitting on the lip under here. So what I'll do now is I'll remove the bar and let me this here is the strip and the flexing I'm talking about. So I do want to keep that because we want them to sort of clamp together later on. Actually one other tip. So let's see if I can make that show. So this here is piece of the flange that sort of sat there. Make sure when you stick this down behind that you actually have it in front of this so you don't get stuck. Yeah, so what I'll do now is I want to pull it down using wheel bolts inside of here. They have the same thread. So as we were pounding this down, flattening the T, I will once again run the threading tap from the underside up so we can get the wheel bolts in there. This is a retake, so please ignore the already drilled holes, the rivet holes and the scribed outline. I've now threaded from the bottom up to get rid of any metal that's been pushed in when tapping down the T. And for the weld version, you may have welded and there's some spatter. So it's really important to thread through, get rid of that, have a clean thread. So when pushing down the VinceBar into position, we'll be using wheel bolts. So they are convenient not only because it's the same thread, but also the cone will be steering in the hole here. It will be steering the VinceBar into the correct. This is once again a retake, so please ignore the holes and the outline, which we will be doing later. In order to place these holes correctly in the right height, you will be using the patch plate if this is a epoxy rivet version that you have chosen. Now, so we tighten the wheel bolts, we squeeze it into place, and I'll show you the rest later on. But before we do that, and this is the reason for the retake, I forgot to show this, we want to make sure that we have a nice line along this edge here, this surface here. And we want to divide this up to a number of sections where we will later on be drilling the rivet holes, or plug weld holes if you're installing the weld-in version. So This is the only drilling you will be doing for the weld-in version. This is for the plug weld holes, as I said. You will be plug welding through this surface into the strip, 5-ish millimeter, and make sure to be very careful in this area here to not drill into this layer here. And that obviously also applies to the epoxy rivet version, when you will be drilling with the 3.25 millimeter through this surface, through the strip, in order to get the rivets in there and clamp it all together. Now that the bar is clamped down using the wheel bolts, I have traced the outline of the end plate with a felt pen. And for the epoxy rivet version, it's time to drill the rivet holes. If you've chosen a weld-in version, which looks like this, you will not be drilling any holes. These are for plug welds, so you will just be cleaning the inside of the chassis leg, and you will be making sure that you have a tight fit. You remove this, you tap it, reinstall it, and make sure you have a tight fit. Do the plug welds and also do some stitch welding around the perimeter. Yeah, and also you will see that you have more of these holes there, slightly larger. What you want to do is make sure you clamp these two layers together. You know, the underside here, the part of the floor, and this in whatever means you want, and then you plug weld through these holes. When drilling the 4.8 millimeter holes for the VinceBar end plates, it's important to understand that there's additional structure inside of this chassis leg. So for these 3 holes, there's just a single layer. You just go through that. This 4th hole, it's dual layer. You want to go through that as well. And in order to get the long clamping rivet to go through and clamp correctly. However, for the frontmost holes, and this is important, so please pay attention, there is a first layer. You will then feel further in that you're hitting something. That's a steel tube for the vent hoses, the plastic vent hoses from the fuel tank. So you do not want to puncture that. You just go through this first layer, and this is why there's also additional short rivets. So the short rivets go in the front holes. On the other side, however, there is a dual layer all the way around, if I remember correctly. That's fair. You want to go through that. You need to go through that in order to get the long clamping rivet. The 3.25 millimeter holes are drilled through the front strip, and this is also the time where we drill the 3.25 millimeter holes in this section of this panel here. And you want to go through the first layer, which is the body panel, and then through the curved strip. And as mentioned previously, do not go through a 3rd layer, because then you will be hitting the inside panel. Having drilled, I want to correct one thing first. So obviously there's 1, 2, 3, 4, not 3. And the 5th up here, which is not the 4th, does go through 2 layers, and you should have a free passage like that. On the fronts, again, very important, you will drill through about that much. Then you will hit something, and that's the metal tube. You can actually feel that it's cylindrical. That's what you want to avoid drilling into. Okay, so you will have these slanted, unless you have a very special power drill, just to get the drill down there. So that's okay. And again, you want to run through all of this, the 2 layers. I've also drilled this bottom line with the 3.25s, and the top strip, front strip, 3.25s. So let's now remove this and have a look. Having drilled the holes, we have the 4.8s here. We have a row of 3.25s here. We have the 3.25s here, and those have gone into the strip. And again, if this were a weld version, you would have no holes there, no holes there. You would have larger holes here, no holes in the strip. Now, just a bit of a tip. As you can see, sorry, there you go. As you can see, these holes are quite far up quite high on the strip, you could safely draw this line a bit further down, especially as this one particularly I accidentally drilled a little bit high, and it's going to be a little bit trickier to get the rivet gun in there. So you should probably come down just a little bit compared to what We'll be wrapping up part 2 here, and it's fair to say that cutting into the cavity, making everything fit and drilling the holes is the cumbersome part of the installation. In part 3, it will be more fun. We will be surface prepping, we're moving paint, surface prepping, and all the rest for the final installation. So please join me in part 3.